Today's episode of Uncommon Impact has Donnie Jones as my guest. I've known Donnie for well over a decade. Shortly after he left the University of Florida, actually, as an assistant coach, he was here for a number of years on Billy Donovan's staff, including on the back-to-back national championship teams. Donnie then went on to be the head coach at Marshall University, then the University of Central Florida. He is now the head coach at the Stetson University Hatters, perfect nickname, where he took Stetson to their first ever NCAA tournament appearance a couple of years ago. In addition to being a great coach and focusing on things like leadership and team building and character and wins and losses, Donnie's also great about relationships and focusing on the things that matter in life. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Well, thank you for joining us for Uncommon Impact. I am here with Donnie Jones, longtime friend and the head basketball coach at Stetson University. Coach, thanks so much for being with me.
Nathan, it's always an honor and pleasure to be with you. I appreciate you having me.
Thanks. You know, it's funny, given our Gainesville connections and longtime friends, it occurred to me we actually never have lived in Gainesville at the same time, but it feels like we should have at some point.
Yeah, no question. Well, your relationship and your family have meant so much to me. And we never had that chance to even be present at the time, like you said, but it's amazing how our relationship has been so special without us even being there in person.
Yeah, no, it's been great. It's been great to stay in touch. And it's nice to have you. You know, this is your 7th year at Stetson, is that right?
That's correct. 7
Wow.
years.
Wow,
Yes.
but it was nice to get you back in the area in Central Florida. And for those who don't know, Stetson's in DeLand, and Donnie has done a nice job putting them on the map. Terrific school in a neat little town near Orlando, kind of Central Florida, over toward the coast as well. But you took them to the first NCAA tournament. I may have shared with you my one DeLand story from growing up, and that was playing American Legion baseball. And then we thought we were pretty good in Gainesville, and we had some solid players, and we kept losing to DeLand, and we finished second in the state to DeLand. And it turns out that they had this guy, Larry Jones, Chipper Jones. And I guess
Yeah.
you're better. The team that has Chipper Jones playing shortstop is going to beat the team that has Nathan Whitaker playing shortstop. I think that was my takeaway from that. But I remember thinking, how is DeLand? Who's DeLand? How are they beating us every time?
Well, you both should have been playing for the Atlanta Braves. That's all I got to say. Just not Chip.
I wish. Yes, I was still floundering at Duke when he was already starting for the Braves. So we had a different path. I just wanted to talk with you for a few minutes about your journey, some of the things you've learned, things that might help our viewers when it comes to leadership, when it comes to teams. Who is somebody who shaped you when it came to leadership, kind of early on?
Yeah, your travels are so vital in your growth, as a leader. And obviously it started at home with me. I was fortunate to have great parents. My dad, Dan Jones, my mom was a great inspiration on me. Anytime you can have that example in your house every day, it has a huge influence from the start. And it gave me a great building block to build from, Nathan. And I think, I had another guy that was important to me. I met as a 12-year-old kid, was a guy that walked into a basketball camp, and his name was Greg White, and he was a great college player at Marshall University. And he become kind of the guy I followed as a young kid and wanted to be like, and ended up my senior year, he got the job at Pikeville College, his first college job. He was 25 years old, and came up and signed me as his first recruit. And so I went to a little small college in Kentucky, and obviously he had a huge influence on me, taught me a lot about discipline, a lot about thinking big, a lot about how to dream, how to compete, how to prepare. And then, obviously I had a chance, coaching was what I wanted to do. Once I finished, and I met this guy named Billy Donovan that showed up at Marshall University. And Billy kept me. I was on the staff as a graduate assistant, and our relationship started there. We were together 13 years and had a huge influence, obviously, in the things I learned from him, about culture and competing and discipline and dedication and focus. I mean, he's a Hall of Fame coach, as we know, for a reason. But a lot of the things that I learned from a leadership it's kind of been built around those early times in my life.
It's fascinating. So I knew the Billy connection, obviously, and know the name, right? Know Billy well. But it's fascinating to me that somebody like Greg White, right, where if I wasn't from Kentucky or growing up in West Virginia like you, hadn't heard of Greg. And
Yeah.
and yet the impact that we have along the way can carry on so far beyond that here's somebody I hadn't heard of who's impacting kids that you're dealing with today at Stetson University because of what he built into you along the way.
Absolutely. Every time we get in front of people, I've realized the importance of impact. Your words, your body language, the things that we talk about a lot in leadership. But people are so influential, and I say the impact even today, even though our world is so transactional. I've always tried to understand the importance of transformation. Right, every time that we have a chance, and I think I learned it at an early age, and I felt it as a young guy. And realized it's even more important in today's world with how fast everything is and how sometimes insensitive and responsible and respectful we are sometimes in situations. I think it's even a better opportunity to have even more impact.
Wow. So, all right, let me talk to you a little bit about that, the transformational aspect and how we treat people. You've been coaching for over 30 years, right? Probably approaching 40 and a head coach for half that. Talk to me a little bit about maybe have you changed along the way as far as who you were as a head coach when you started or a young assistant and how you are now? Or has that been kind of who you are now that Greg would recognize you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, obviously we have grown. Obviously, when you're younger, you're trying to figure out your identity. All right, who am I going to be? Am I going to be Billy Donovan? Am I going to be Greg White? I'm going to be like my dad. Am I going to be me? And what I've learned, I've kind of been a part of all that. And I think with that, finding your own identity early on as a coach is always a challenge because you've kind of modeled what you see and what you experience. And I think when you're trying to find your own personality and your own identity, I can remember Billy saying this to me when I took my first coaching job at Marshall University. I was going back home to West Virginia. And this wasn't just a couple weeks after we won the national championship back-to-back, 2008. Billy says, I'm excited for you to have your opportunity. I'm just so worried about you because you're such a nice guy. And I'm worried you'll be so nice that maybe people will not take you serious. And you've always been the kind guy, right? Well, I had to play that role, and I am a kind guy and take pride in that. But I think the biggest thing was just forming my identity, being the head coach when you step over into that seat and now you have a platform to lead other people, Nathan. I think it gives you an opportunity to grow through some adversity, how we handle things emotionally, how do you respond to things, probably as a young coach compared to where you are now. This is my 38th year in college coaching, which has been a blessing to have a chance to be around some great leaders. And I've always tried to find a way to connect, because to me, coaching is about connecting just like leading. And I think there's so many connections and how you build trust and people buy into performing for you. Is based on how you can connect. And a lot of people can communicate, but very few can connect. And there's a difference. And I think, with that is how you approach that. And I think that's kind of been my personality as a young coach, and even to where I am now. I think being able to connect and be transformational with kids and people and have a sincere, genuine interest in for the best of whoever you're coaching in their life.
Wow, yeah, that makes so much sense. And I guess then to go back to Billy's point, certainly a lot of truth to what he's saying, that there are times when you have to make hard decisions and tough choices, and you also had to figure out who you were in that new role. But then you also realizing that, okay, this is how I'm wired. I think this is part of what I heard you saying. This is how I'm wired, and so my strength is that I'm going to be able to connect. And
That's correct.
Yeah. And then it's not necessarily, I don't know, I mean, yes, you're incredibly nice and I love being around you, but there's also this aspect of listening, understanding. I mean, there are times you have to be tough, but that doesn't mean you're not still connecting because you understand what's best for them and what they need to do to get to where they need to go.
Absolutely. And that's so true. I think some people, the old saying, tough love or love tough, right? So I've always been a love tough guy. I think it's building trust and being able to connect with you and understanding how I speak to you. Coach serves famous phrase he uses a lot is shout praise, whisper criticism, right? So I think so much knowing your customer and knowing the player and building those relationships and knowing their story is so important, I think, in how we communicate, how we teach, how we build trust. When do we confront? When do we applaud? All those things are so vital because I think all kids are different, and how you coach them generally is the same but completely different when it comes down to the individual aspects of really moving performance, I think, in players.
Okay, well, let me ask you a little bit about that then. When it comes to culture, we all talk about culture, and it's a buzzword, but I do think it matters. So I think there's a reason we talk about it. Is there when you're putting together a team and you've got a star player and you've got somebody who might be more of a role player, do you coach them the same? I would guess there's not two sets of rules, whether stated or not. What do you do with that when an organization has a star worker and somebody else who's, a glue type person, right? What do you do?
Yeah, you know what, and I think culture is what you're doing, right? That's the buzzword. It's so important. I think it's something that we fight for all the time. And as I was talking to a coach here the other day, he was a really famous coach, and we were talking about culture, right? And that word's been around forever. But I think the most important thing, culture is what you're doing, and I think how your people are performing in that culture is something you have to fight for every day. And here I just finished up recruiting, which is completely different than what it was 3 years ago, is that 90% of your roster is formed in 6 weeks. And so with that, through Zoom calls, through dealing with other people that's just become involved with the kid, you're trying to get a feel for what fits and what culture is. It used to be we knew these kids for 2-3 years sometimes before they came and eventually joined your team. So with that, how do we become good in a short period of time? Identify what fits your culture and people. So I think we have to be more prepared with our questions, more prepared with our research, more prepared with the people we're asking the right questions to try to get a feel what fits us as people first. Obviously, talent's got its price of admission. You got to have talent, but I think with the culture, the star player, and then somebody we feel may be just a little bit less talented, but still brings an incredible skill level to your program. How do you blend those together? And I think that's one thing I've done here, and another time we can probably share this. I got this leadership program that I do with our guys, and I've spent the last 6 months just really detailing that for a whole new team, right? And so how do we come in and how do we build trust? How do we fit? How do we get to know each other? How do we build culture on trust in 10 months and play for each other? And that used to be a process over time, and still trust is a process, but how do we build trust with our team building, our activities, and take that star player and the new kid who wants to be the star, and maybe they're playing for 1 year and not 4. And I think that is a challenge. That's a long answer for a short question, but that's been a big focus for me, is just how do we bring these guys in and playing for something still bigger than the now, in themselves, in a world that's so transactional. It's about get yours, get more money, and get to the next place. That's all we're focused on, is where we're going to be next. But how do we transform that in a culture, with stars? And a lot of these guys have been the best player, all of them, walking in year one. Not a process of over 4 years, which is different.
Wow. Well, that's, the interesting thing about that, and you and I have talked before about the Miami Heat and keeping one of your guys around, Udonis Haslem, for years, because he was kind of the guy who carried the culture. And so Spoelstra had him on board. But you have to kind of do it. But it's interesting to hear how intentional you are with this program, that you're going to dig into it. And I might add as an aside that you are leadership and team building and speaker and consultant from work that you've done along the way. You were with the Clippers for a while doing some stuff and consulting and scouting. And so in addition to coaching, you've also really delved into this leadership field as well. So what I hear you say, the other thing that I just want to touch on and make sure I follow through on is, I was talking to Tony Dungy one time about, you've got this idea of family that's part of the culture. And then, all right, but hold on, let's move that over there and talk to me about the roster construction. He went, no. If it's a value, you can't move it over there and now let's talk about something else. He said it's got to be, so for you, trust, it sounds like, is a big part of we're gonna build this sense of trust, whether it's where we're supposed to be, whether it's classes, whether it's practices, whether it's weight room, whether it's how we treat each other. We can trust each. Anyway, it sounds like that's a key component, a core value for you.
It really is. Trust is. I think obviously family is always one. Faith is a big one as well. I mean, all those things never change, no matter what the world brings to us. Those are still values of character. I think of who we are, and obviously that's got to be the center point of everything we do. Is got to flow from that, and I think that's what we build from in this leadership program with our guys. And I think kids want it. I think kids are looking to be a part of this. I had a kid, Chase Johnson, you probably just saw, it was with High Point. It was kind of the March Madness, face of the program here this past March. And, Chase started here with me at Stetson as a freshman and a sophomore and had 2 phenomenal years. And, with the NIL transferred out. And he called and he came by. And he wanted to come to town. He wanted to come to my house. He wanted my wife to cook for him. He wanted to see my family. And he just stayed in a hotel. We went to dinner. We got up. We had coffee. And all he wanted to talk about was, Coach, thanks. Because everywhere I've been, I'd never got what I got here. I'm not saying that to praise what we do. And all it really was a family here at our house. It was Thanksgiving here, it was Christmas here, it was just to watch games, or it was just to care about you, or because the world had got so fast, it just become about basketball. It was never about life. And he wants to be a minister now, and he's talking about going to school to do that, and about his faith and how he can impact people. And so with that, those are the things when we talk about transformation. We win lives and we win games. We want to win both. And I think there's a place for both. And I think that we have to fight for that differently. But I think this world makes us so fast sometimes in leadership. We just get caught up in the win. Well, what is the win? And I think that's important when you're building trust and identity and, young people that need it more than ever during this time.
Yeah. What is the win? Yeah, it's the score, and it's also when they show up back at your house because they want to come hang out with you because you've connected with them in a real way. That's awesome.
Yeah, and we've heard that saying, Nathan, and obviously I want to, applaud you and Tony. I mean, I've learned so much just reading your books and the things that you and Tony have done to impact young coaches and young people like myself. And, you talk about success and significance, right? That's another big one, it's great to be successful. We want that. But significance is a different trophy. It's a different celebration because it's about others. It's not about yourself. And I think that's the message, the difference between success and significance. And I heard Tim Tebow talking about that the other day when I was listening to some stuff with him. So I think that's leadership to me. That's culture. That's when you're impacting people that changes legacy and families and lives in a different way. That's still a mission. I think as coaches, when I got in this, that was what excited me. I love winning, but I love the relationships and the transformation that happened to me as a young guy.
Awesome, man. I think that kind of answers where I want to wrap with us, but I'll give you a shot at it anyway. That when you talk about significance and success, and the title is Uncommon Impact, this question of what we're doing to impact others and how we're doing that. What does uncommon impact mean to you now as we sit here, as you head into your 7th season?
Yeah, I love uncommon. I mean, I've used that a lot, from reading the books that, that you and Tony put together. It's priceless. That is a timeless book and a concept. And, uncommon impact, I really think goes back to what Uncommon was wrote for with you and Tony, and I don't think it's really changed. Even in this world, it's gotten faster and faster and faster. I think the common denominator still stands as people and impact. And I think when you're talking about being uncommon, that means you're not being like others. And when we talk about others, we're talking about the others that's really probably less than the 1 to 5% of the world. There's a lot of great people in this world, in sports and leadership and business, who impact other people. So to be in that, like we talk with our athletes, to be that 1%, to be that elite leader, to be that elite athlete, you have to be uncommon with your approach. and how you show up every day, how you prepare in your habits every day, how you wake up and begin your day, how you end your day, how you're intentional with the things that others don't always celebrate, that doesn't get the credit when no one's around. The work that's being done for all those hours until game days are only celebration. So I think the uncommon with that can go, to me, so many different ways, but being uncommon is just being a culture that leads and loves and cares, who shares, who makes it about the others than themselves. And I think that is an uncommon impact to me in life and leadership.
Great thought to close with: lead, love, share, outward focused, and that certainly will make an impact for the rest of their lives. Coach, thanks so much. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're running from one thing to another, but thanks so much for sitting down and sharing with us.
Nathan, thanks for your impact and to what you're doing, and congrats on your success. I love the leadership, follow you, and much respect for all the great things you're doing for us leaders out here to continue to pour into us as we grow others in this beautiful place that we get to lead with.
No doubt. No doubt. Well, great. Well, thanks so much.
You're welcome. Thanks, Nathan.